Okay, so we're going to tie a golden stone kind of sexy style here. I tie a lot of different types of golden stones. This one, just to add a little bit more bugginess to it, that's kind of what we're going to end up with at the end here. Very similar to the type of golden stone that I normally tie, but we're going to add in some partridge and some other stuff there to make that a little bit more buggy. So in the vise, we've got a size 10 curved nymph hook with a 3.5 millimeter Mounds firehole stone bead. I like these beads a lot. I like that matte color. I use those on pretty much most of my nymphs, on all my Euro nymphs too. We've got some 0.015 lead-free wire in there, and the thread that I'm going to be using is an A-dot brown Vivus. Vivus has kind of become my go-to thread these days, so we're going to get that started right behind the lead there, or the wire. We'll get a few wraps just to kind of get that cinched in, and then I'm going to backtrack. I'm going to put a few wraps tucked inside the wire, and then I'm going to double my thread back and dam it up a little bit. Bring that all the way to the front. There's no need for any glue or anything like that. The thread will lock that wire in as tight as it ever can get. Glue's not really going to help you much in that situation. So I'm leaving the tag end on for most of my wraps going down the body. And the reason why is you can pull the tag end in that direction and tighten up your wraps if you need to. And part of the reason why I want to make sure that I'm able to do that is because as I move my way down the shank, it's harder to make those touching wraps. And what I want to do for an underbody is I want to make a triple layer thread underbody. Now the reason why I want to do that is if you ever look at the tails of a stonefly, those tails don't really splay out the way a mayfly does. They kind of are, they're separated and they stick off of the body a little bit more straight. Now, at the end of the day, you know, the fish are not going to care at all. But, you know, as I've said many times, I'm a big confidence fly guy. If I like the way my fly looks, if I think that I am presenting it the way that it should be presented, I feel a, I don't know, much higher level of accomplishment, you know, especially if I don't have a particularly great day. I don't feel like I did something wrong. I can just be like, hey, you know, the fish weren't on. I'm not going to walk away from the water going, I should have used this, I should have used that. So I like flies that give me that confidence. Okay. So being tied in now are a couple of duck biots in brown. So I like the duck biots a lot more than goose. I know goose has kind of become the standard for nymphs, but most of those goose biots are not appropriately sized. If you get a duck biot, more of the pieces that you're using are the size that you want. I gotta flip this around. You know, one thing that I've never really been able to master is the tying in of biots. Ever since I started tying, these things have always been a pain to me. So I do them one at a time. I know there's a lot of people out there that do them both at the same time. They line them up, put them on both sides of the hook, and then boom, tie them in at the same time. Quick and, well, I was going to say quick and easy, but I don't know about easy. I have a hard time with that technique. So what I've been doing, even though it does take a little bit longer, I get them in there one by one, like that. And then I get them the way that I want. So we're going to go all the way up, back to the weight. And we're going to start building our body up. But before we do that, what we're going to do is we're going to take some of this mid-size vinyl rib in brown, and we're going to snip off a little piece of that. That's going to be the ribbing for our body. And while we're tying that in, we're going to do two things at once here. We're going to tie in the material that we need, but we're also going to build up the taper on the body that I'm looking for. So I'm going to go down about 1/4 of the way, and I'm going to double back, and then I'm going to go down about another 1/4 of the way, double back again, and And you can see that I'm starting to build up that taper. I'll go down another good chunk. Bring it back up. Should get a pretty nice taper out of this. And the good thing is you don't really have to be super accurate with this. We're going to cover this with dubbing. But the reason why I like to taper the body is not only does it help with the shape of the body, but I like to use less dubbing on my nymphs. It's just, it's just the more dubbing, the more water resistant, the less the sink rate. I like to have a nice thin layer of dubbing so it sinks a lot quicker. You still get the same exact look. Doesn't change the way it looks at all. But it gets down faster. It's a lot more effective. So a little less dubbing. Now, I don't have the original package, but what I'm putting on here, I don't know if you can see it because I use really small wisps of dubbing. This is Awesome Possum Golden Stone. This is the only dubbing that I use for all of my Golden Stone patterns. It's fantastic. It's obviously got that gold color that you're looking for, but it's got other fibers mixed in of different colors, and when it gets wet, it looks fantastic. Doesn't give you that bright yellowish color that a lot of other dubbings have. If you ever look at a golden stone, yes, they are gold, but underwater, they got the brown plates on the back. There's a lot of mixed colors in there, and I think this dubbing is really the best representative of that. So this is Awesome Possum in golden stone color. I buy it up every time I see it. It's my favorite golden stone dubbing, so pick some of that up. So we're going to take another wrap here. Now we're going to move our thread to behind the rib. I like to get one wrap of dubbing before I start wrapping my rib. Get that there, and we'll just start following the body all the way up with touching wraps. The body will, for the most part, take the shape that we want. But that's another benefit of a nice thin dubbing noodle. If there's something in there you got to fill in, or if there's a mistake you got to fix, like right here with like a little bit of a bump, you can always just double back and fill that in with your dubbing noodle. So I'll go and need a little bit more here. I don't really mind if I have to add more dubbing. I don't look to get it all done in one step. It's really not that big of a deal. Plus also when you got a camera in front of the hook, you can't make that long of a noodle, so... Alright, so we'll continue wrapping up. Continue to fill in any spots that don't taper the way you want. If you look at a stonefly, the proportions are a little different than a mayfly. They're a little bit more prominent on the front, so my body is not really going to be as long as it would be if this was a mayfly nymph. So I've got this pretty much up to the wire. I just want to even that out a little bit. Add a little bit more dubbing. But I'm not going to go much farther up the body than where I am right now. Part of the reason why I like to build up the front part a little is when you come up with the ribbing, it's going to mash that dubbing down, tighten it up a little bit. So if you don't have enough there, you're going to kind of lose your shape when you mat it down with the ribbing. So I'm just going to build up this final little part here a little. And get a thread base down there, start covering the wire. And we'll take this, rib this up the body. Take your time, nice even wraps. One more to finish that. And there we go. Kind of hold this out straight to keep that on the side. And we'll get that snipped off. Okay, before I tie in my next material, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a dubbing brush and I'm just going to take some strokes straight back, tease out a little bit of that dubbing. Oh, I just moved my ribbing. I can't believe I just did that. Yeah. That shouldn't be too tough of a fix. Let's back that off. There's always a way to fix everything. So you can see that little tag there. I'm going to take some hackle pliers And I'm going to grab that tag end before I free it of the thread. And now I'm just going to go back. You know, sometimes I make mistakes like this when I film videos, but instead of starting the video over, I like to just kind of keep tying. Kind of not only shows that, you know, mistakes are made, they happen, but they're also fixable. There. So now we're re-ribbed. I got one less wrap in there, but it's no problem at all. Actually, don't mind fewer wraps on the ribbon. That'd be more than fine. All right, so we'll go back in. We'll tease that out a little bit more. We'll try not to screw this up. Angle that back towards the back of the fly. Give that nice buggy look. All right, next order of business is a cinnamon tip turkey tail. I'm going to take a string of fibers out, and the further up this quill you go, eventually you'll get to the point where these fibers are long enough to where you don't have to keep cutting more off. You can just use the same big long stretch, and that's a long piece of feather. So I'm just going to use that one piece for the entire fly. So I'll start by snipping off so I get a nice even end. And we'll get that mashed down with our thumb. And tie it in nice and tight. Okay. So we're going to take our duck quill again. We're going to keep kind of going back to this. And I'm going to make my way up the quill. I'm going to cut off 2 more biots. That's going to serve as first part of our legs. Let's get those right in on the side there. These will be a little bit shorter than our front ones, so we'll pull that material back a little bit. Get that cinched in. And again, I wish I could be a little bit more efficient for everybody, but tying these in at the same time is just not my thing. I am not very good at that at all, so we're all just going to have to wait for me to do them one at a time. Okay, we're pretty even. We're locked in. I don't even really need to snip that off. Let's just... I wouldn't mind a little bit of a barrier over that, over the wire anyway. Okay, now, here's where we're going to add in some of the extra bugginess. I'm going to take one of these partridge feathers here, and I am going to rip off all of the fluff on the bottom part of the feather so that I only have the top. And then I'm going to come in here with my scissors from the back, poke those points through, and snip off the inner part of that feather. And I'm going to take a couple more fibers off of the back. Just because the back, I want to build it up as we go. So now I'm just going to lay that flat on top. I'm going to hold it with my fingers where I know I want it, and wrap up and get that secured. Cut off the excess. Now, from here on out, really what we're going to do is we're going to kind of tie this similar to the other golden stones that I tie, and other golden stones that you've probably seen out there too. We're going to do our triple wing case. So we're just going to keep adding dubbing, folding that wing case over, and doing it again. And there will be 3 of those that bring us all the way up to the head of the fly. So now we're going to take the dubbing, get our first thorax section built up. And when I fold my wing case over, I take a bodkin here. Now notice in the end it's just a straight point. There are some bodkins where the point is curved so that you can grab and pick out dubbing. This is just a straight version. This is what I like for this. And what I do is I take this and I slip it right where the wing case and the dubbing match up. And I fold it over the top, and then I pull it out and hold it with my finger as I tie it in. That gives us a nicely placed wing case. It doesn't push forward too much. It really, really helps with the way that that looks. I'm going to take the excess, fold that back, and we're just going to continue that process. The second part of the abdomen, we're not going to put a piece of partridge in there. We're just simply going to fill it up with dubbing. Everything's going to slick back, cover that middle section anyway, so we don't really need to do that. And to be honest with you, if we did what we're doing 3 times instead of 2 times, this fly would be dramatically overdressed. The way it's done with 2 sections gives it a nice buggy look, soaks up some extra water, makes it really attractive. Okay, so there's our second section. We're going to take our bodkin, slip it in there, fold it over the bodkin, and get that secured. Take the excess, fold it back. And for the final stretch, I mean, we're really pretty much going to do the same thing, but we're going to throw in one more set of legs and partridge. So cut off some biots. Get excited, because you're going to have to wait for me to tie these in one at a time again. So let's get that lined up where I want it. Get that tied in. This is probably going to be the most fast-forwarded part of this video. Or any video where I'm tying stones, really. I try. That's all I can say. Move that so I can... It's kind of caught up a little bit in the other material, so I got to free that. There we go. All right, that took a little coaxing, but once it's where you want it, we'll lock it in. Okay, so we're going to take another partridge feather, and we are going to, same thing, we'll strip off the back, strip all that webby stuff out of there. And then we're going to take our scissors, we're going to punch out that middle portion, and what's left is going to get laid right on top. We're going to line up how long we want those to be. Right there, whoops. Lay that right about there. And we'll secure them with our fingers. Nice loose wrap so they don't go kind of crazy all over the place. And then we can tighten down after that. And that's going to give us the look we're looking for. Okay, so the last section, we're going to get that filled in with some more dubbing. And then we're on to the last couple steps. Keep that dubbing noodle as tight as you can. You want that really locked in there. The more loose your dubbing is, I remember this, on a dry fly, that's going to be okay. But for this, we want it to get that buggy look by soaking up the water, but we don't really want it to give us any little bit of buoyancy. We want this fly to get down and down as quickly as we can. All right, so what we're going to do now, we're going to take one more partridge feather. Same thing, strip all that off. And now we're going to grab the tip. Get it as close to the tip as you can and start pulling some of those fibers back. Just pull as many of them back as you can so you just have a little bit of the tip left. Tease it all back, and that's kind of what you're looking for right there. You're looking for that. So we're going to take this, we're going to slip this onto the side, and we're going to get that tied in. Now make a couple of tight wraps here, because if your wraps aren't tight, once you start pulling on that quill, it's very easy to just pull this feather right out. So we want to make sure that we get a couple of really nice tight wraps. And also, this is where you have to start making some of your thread wraps count, because if you fill this space in with too many wraps, you're not going to have enough to tie in all the final stuff. So, okay, so now that that's in there, I'm going to take my hackle pliers and I'm going to grab the stem. Not totally necessary, but it does give you a little bit of extra room. And we're going to do one single turn. Just one turn like this. Nothing more than that. You don't want too much material there. You don't want to overdress. This fly can easily be overdressed. That's why we want to make sure that we limit our thread wraps, make every wrap count, and tie all this in a certain way. So now that we have that, what we'll do is we'll kind of split those fibers on both sides, and we'll take our wing case, and we'll use our wing case to force all those fibers down onto the bottom of the fly. Oops, I kind of screwed that, slipped out of my hand. So let's fold that over. One loose wrap to get it secured. And before I really tighten that, let's make sure all that partridge is where we want it, which it is. Straighten that a little bit. Get that all teased back. And now we can tighten that up. Get rid of that. Okay, so I'm going to fill that in a little bit because we have one more step. And our final step is let's get those antennae that stick out the front tied in. Alert. Now might be the time to fast forward because here we go again. So I want these splaying out. So I'm going to put them on the right side so that they stick out. I dropped one, so I got to cut off another. See, I'm at the top of this duck quill, and these biots are getting much smaller, but they're much more appropriately sized for a nymph. They're not those big, oversized, huge goose biots. So let's get that in with a couple of wraps. And we're good. Okay, so that's pretty much the end. I'm just going to clean up the head here a little bit. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to get one whip finish here. And the reason why I'm going to do one there is because I'm about to cover this thread with a little bit of dubbing. Not a ton, just a little bit there. And then what I'm going to do is with the dubbing on the thread, I'm going to do a whip finish to cover up that thread. Where did that biot go? Did I just cover that? Yeah. Whoops. I didn't realize I grabbed that. Alright, so let's get a couple of hand wraps in. Alright, so now we'll get in there. I did it again. And we'll whip finish that. Cover up those thread wraps, get some dubbing on the head. Man, that biot just will not stay out of my way. I'm going to do one more to make sure that that's not going to leak forward on me. There you go. All right, so there you have it. That is a golden stone, and that is the same type of fly that I have been tying for quite some time. All I'm doing is just adding a little bit of extra bugginess to it, a little bit of extra partridge. That'll soak up some extra water. Make this a really, really buggy fly. And that's essentially what you end up with. That's the sexy style golden stone. Really, really effective. What I like to do, you don't have to do this, but again, I like to limit some of this. See these fibers on the bottom? I like to just kind of snip off some of the excess there, and all it takes is just one little clip, and I think that gives you all the bugginess you need. You can make some alterations to it if you want. You can also tie it as not golden. You can tie it as a regular stonefly with black dubbing, black partridge. Obviously the possibilities are endless. But it's a great fly. Just another version of the golden stones that I've always tied, always fished. So it'll definitely work for you. All right, any questions or anything, leave them right in the comments.